The storm swept across the Montana plains the night Clara reached the tiny church, shivering beneath her soaked shawl. Her father's recent death still echoed in every breath she took, leaving her alone with debts she could never repay. The lanterns flickered against the wooden walls, painting shadows that felt too heavy for her fragile heart. She wasn't marrying the cowboy out of love, she wasn't even sure she understood love anymore. She was marrying to keep a promise, to survive the winter, and that truth weighed on her chest like a stone pressing deeper with every heartbeat. Ethan Cole stepped into the church a moment later, rain dripping from his hat, boots muddy, eyes unreadable. Folks called him a man carved from silence, steady, rugged, impossible to sway. But when he saw Clara trembling, something flickered behind his stern expression. He expected a frontier girl hardened by loss, not someone whose sadness softened the entire room. Her eyes, lonely yet determined, held him in place. He walked closer, each step heavier than he intended, as though something in her brokenness called out to something buried deep in him. The preacher cleared his throat awkwardly, sensing the tension. Thunder rattled the windowpanes as Clara tried to steady her breathing. Ethan stood inches from her now, a towering figure smelling faintly of rain and pine. She noticed the scar on his cheek, the exhaustion in his shoulders, the gentleness hidden under a man's armor. For a moment she felt safe beside him, but safety meant trust, and trust was something she wasn't sure she had left. She swallowed hard, wondering whether this rushed marriage was salvation or another mistake she couldn't undo. Right as the preacher opened his book, Ethan lifted his hand and touched Clara's elbow, soft, deliberate, stopping everything. "Clara," he murmured, voice rough from years of silence, "before we begin, I need to say something." She froze. The candles flickered. His face, usually so controlled, carried uncertainty. "I don't want lies between us," he continued. "Not tonight. Not ever." Clara's breath caught. She wasn't prepared to face the truth, not hers, not his. But his voice held no anger, only a plea she didn't expect from a man carved from storms. Clara's fingers trembled around the bouquet she had borrowed. She had secrets, fear, doubt, the weight of survival pressing against her ribs. How could she say she wasn't ready to be someone's wife? That she felt small, scared, and unsure she even deserved a life beyond grief. Ethan's gaze didn't waver. It pressed deeper, urging her to reveal what she had locked away. Her throat tightened as she whispered, "Then, ask me whatever you need." Her voice cracked at the edges but carried more strength than she felt. Ethan inhaled sharply, stunned by her unexpected courage. Lightning flashed through the stained glass window, scattering colors across their faces. Ethan stepped back slightly, struggling for words he had never spoken aloud. The preacher sensed the moment and quietly stepped away, giving them space. Ethan's jaw flexed, fingers curling with a fear even he couldn't hide. "Clara, before we say our vows, I need the full truth." She lifted her chin slowly, eyes shimmering with a mix of pain and bravery. Her whisper landed between them like a spark in dry grass, "Ask me everything. I want you to know it all." Ethan hadn't expected that answer. Her boldness cracked through his silence, leaving him almost breathless. He took a shaky step closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Are you marrying me because you want to, or because you have nowhere else to go?" The question sliced through the room. Clara's heartbeat stumbled. She looked down, gripping her shawl. The truth hurt, more than she wanted to admit, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. "Both," she whispered. "I want safety. I want a chance. I want to stop drowning." Her honesty shook him. Ethan's eyes softened, barely, but enough for her to notice. "I won't hold you prisoner to a vow you make out of fear," he said quietly. Clara blinked at him, stunned. Most men in town would have taken advantage of her desperation, but here he stood, offering a way out. Rain pounded the roof as she held his gaze, feeling something warm push through the grief inside her. "I'm not running," she said, voice steadier. "I chose this, even if I'm scared." Ethan's breath eased, but something still troubled him, something he wasn't saying. The church felt smaller suddenly, like the air had thickened with unspoken truths. Ethan looked away for the first time, his shoulders tense. "Clara, you deserve to know something about me." Her stomach tightened. He wasn't a man who spoke of his past, everyone knew that. "What is it?" she asked gently. Ethan hesitated, then said, "I've buried people I cared about. Too many. I don't let myself get close anymore." I don't know if I can be the husband you expect." His voice wavered, cracking the mask he'd worn for years. Clara stepped closer, not out of courage but out of instinct. Loss recognized loss. Pain recognized pain. "Ethan," she said softly, "I never expected perfection. I only hoped for honesty." He blinked, startled. No one ever asked for that from him. She swallowed hard, adding, "I don't need a perfect husband. I need a real one. A man who won't walk away." Her words hit him deeper than she knew. For the first time, Ethan realized she wasn't as fragile as she looked. She was holding herself together with threads of sheer will. The storm outside softened, though neither noticed. Ethan exhaled slowly, the tightness in his chest easing. "One more question," he said, voice low. Clara braced herself. "Do you trust me, even a little?" She didn't answer immediately. Trust was a wound still healing. But she looked at his steady hands, his tired eyes, the quiet sincerity in his voice. "Enough to try," she whispered. "Enough to walk beside you tonight instead of alone." Ethan's breath caught again, not out of shock but something dangerously close to hope. Ethan nodded slowly, almost reverently. "Then we'll start with that." Clara felt the weight inside her shift, not disappear, but lighten. The preacher returned quietly, sensing the change. Ethan didn't take his eyes off her as the vows began. His voice, usually stiff and guarded, softened when he spoke her name. Clara's hands stopped trembling. Her heartbeat steadied. For the first time since her father's death, she felt a fragile thread of belonging tug at her soul. When the preacher asked if she would take Ethan as her husband, Clara hesitated for one breath, just one. Not from fear, but from the overwhelming reality of the moment. Then she said, "I will." Ethan's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, but she caught it, relief. Gratitude. Something tender he tried to hide. When it was his turn, he answered without a single pause. "I will." Their vows echoed through the small church, quiet but powerful, stitching two wounded lives together. As the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Clara expected fear to wash over her again, but instead, she felt warmth. Ethan reached for her hands, hesitant but sincere. She looked up at him, whispering the words that stunned him more than anything she had confessed earlier. "Now you know my truths, but I want yours too. All of them." Ethan froze, breath catching. Her bold request wasn't about secrets, it was about closeness. Connection. Partnership. And for a man who'd built walls taller than mountains, her words shattered the first brick. The storm had faded by the time they stepped out of the church, but the cold night air bit at her skin. Ethan walked beside her in silence, guiding her toward the wagon with a gentle caution that surprised her. The scent of wet earth and pine filled the air. Clara watched him quietly, steady, quiet, unreadable, and wondered what storms he still carried inside. She had given him her truths. Tonight, she hoped he might trust her with his. The wagon creaked as they climbed in, lanterns swaying above them. Clara shivered, and without a word Ethan removed his coat and draped it around her shoulders. It was warm, smelling of saddle leather and pine, and her breath caught. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded. With him, silence didn't feel empty, it felt safe, steady. But she needed to hear his voice. She needed to know him. As the wheels rolled over wet ground, she finally whispered, "Ethan, earlier, you said you lost people." His jaw tightened, reins shifting slightly in his hands. She hesitated, not wanting to wound him further. "If you want to tell me," she murmured, "I'm listening." For a long moment he said nothing. Then, in a low voice, "My brother. And my mother. Both gone." Pain shadowed his words. Clara felt her heart clench. She knew loss too deeply. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He kept his eyes on the road. "My brother was reckless," he murmured. "I tried to protect him. I failed." His voice cracked, revealing the wound he'd carried for years. Clara moved closer, the coat snug around her shoulders. "Loss doesn't mean failure," she whispered. "Sometimes life breaks things we can't hold together." He looked at her then, truly looked, and she saw gratitude flicker through the pain. Moonlight lit the cabin as they arrived. Smoke curled from the chimney. Ethan helped her down from the wagon, holding her hand longer than necessary, as though grounding himself through her touch. Inside, the cabin was warm and tidy, filled with soft firelight. Clara exhaled. "It feels safe," she whispered. Ethan's expression softened. "It's home," he said quietly. "Yours too now." She sat beside the fire, watching him move with quiet care. He stirred the embers, avoiding her eyes, and she sensed his nerves. "Ethan," she whispered, "earlier I asked for the full truth. I meant it, not for tonight, but for our life." He stiffened. "Why?" "Because trust begins with truth." He sat across from her, elbows on his knees. "Words don't come easy," he murmured. She smiled gently. "Then start with one truth." The fire crackled softly. After a long pause he whispered, "I'm afraid." Her breath hitched. "Of what?" "Of failing you, the way I failed everyone else." The confession cracked something inside her, not fear, but compassion. She reached out, placing her hand over his. His hand twitched, surprised, but he didn't pull away. "You don't have to protect me from everything," she whispered. "You just have to stay. That's enough." He breathed shakily. "No one's ever stood beside me." She squeezed his hand. "You have someone now." Moments passed before he whispered, "There's more." She looked at him softly. "Tell me." His eyes lifted slowly. "No one has ever wanted to know me. Really know me. When you asked for the full truth, I didn't know how to give it." Clara moved closer, her voice gentle. "Then we'll learn together." He swallowed hard. "My brother died saving me." Her breath stilled. "Ethan," he shook his head. "He pushed me aside. Took the hit instead. I've lived with that every day." She placed her hand on his arm. "You honor him by living, not by punishing yourself." Ethan turned toward her, eyes shining with unshed emotion. "I don't know how." "Then we start now," she whispered. "You and me." His expression softened, slowly, hesitantly. "You're stronger than you look," he murmured. "So are you," she whispered back. They settled near the fire again, closer than before, the warmth wrapping around them. Clara leaned slightly toward him. "Ethan, when you agreed to marry me, what truth were you afraid to say?" He hesitated only a moment. "That I didn't want to be alone anymore." Her heart clenched. She rested her head gently against his shoulder. "Then you won't be," she whispered. "Not as long as you want me here." Ethan closed his eyes, the simple contact easing something inside him. The flames crackled, the room warm, and for the first time he let himself breathe without the weight of the past crushing him. He turned slightly, meeting her gaze softly. "Then here's my full truth," he whispered. "I'm glad it's you." Clara's heart swelled, hope rising like morning light. In that quiet cabin, two wounded souls found the beginning of something fragile, real, and healing. A marriage that started from necessity slowly softened into trust, and something dangerously close to love.